in the chat if you want to, let us know that you were able to access the agenda, that you're looking at this slide. Awesome. And so all of the blue links in the agenda are clickable, and we're also going to be highlighting certain features of our distance learning site as well. So this is interactive. This is something you can look back later. And we also will be adding the link to our recording today. And so that's what the intro I've got. And Rhonda, I'm actually going to give you a call. So if I'll hand it back over to Darrell.
Right on. Thanks, Joy. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to introduce everyone with some amazing photos that they have. I just wanted to share with everyone, make it personal. So I'm going to present my screen. So I'm going to switch. Also, the links will be on all the different slides that I have. So just somebody so I'm going to shoot on get on my screen here and talk just a little bit about an introduction to this topic. This thing called Netiquette. We talked about it and we discussed what this thing is, and it has a broad range of influence. So when we're talking about Netiquette, it ranges from one side of the spectrum to talking about how you present yourself and confidence in a professional way, all the way to the other side of the spectrum, where we're actually digital citizenship characteristics within our classroom, so that our students can stay on point and stay learning within the environment that they're finding themselves online. And so I'm really super excited. We've got some guests that I'm really excited to introduce to you. So our panel starts off with Jason Sewell. He's coming to us from Paramount High School. After that, we're going to hear a little bit from Genevieve Wilson. After that, we're going to hear from Elba Beasley. Sorry about that. Make sure everybody's in order. Elba's from Jefferson, and Emily Martin's from Buena Vista. And so we're super excited this morning to bring all these panel of guests on, and then to wrap us up at the end of the hour will be Nancy talking about the. But before we get going here, here's all of our guys. Stuff online to everybody say like a plug. That's for everyone. But we're going to start off now with Jason. So I just kind of wanted to give sort of a background. Jason he's like the guy from Pirate News. He's the main guy that brings us that amazing publication. It's actually so pivotal these days with the community building at Paramount High School. He's a department chair for CTE, and he's a film and media teacher, so he's got a lot of responsibilities. I'm going to beam off right now, Jason, so you go ahead and take it away.
All right, guys. Hey, can everybody hear me? Your hands in the air, thumbs up, that all works. Awesome, guys. Hey, thanks. First and foremost, good morning. It feels awesome saying that I actually come to you guys from my classroom. Right now is my opportunity, my 2-hour window to pick up anything from my classroom that I need. So it feels really, really, really good to be in my classroom. I got up and I stood up and I almost cried. I was like, man, my God, it feels so good to be here. Anyway, so if I seem like animated and really excited, I think that's probably the reason why. Or it could be the 4 cups of coffee I've already had. I was up at 5:30 this morning doing some stuff. So one of those 2 factors is contributing to this. Anyhow, so let's kind of rewind a little bit and let's kind of talk about why I'm actually here today. So about 2 months ago, I started doing an administrative credential online for USC. And so I spent about 4 hours a week. Well, I was spending about 4 hours a week online in Zoom meetings. And one of the first articles that the instructor introduced to us was it was an article about don't be a webcam zombie. And I thought it was really, really funny. It just kind of highlighted some do's and don'ts of being in front of a computer. And anyhow, then all of a sudden, this whole thing happens, and now we're all kind of conducting classes online. So I forwarded the article to Dr. Sonia and maybe a few others. and said, hey guys, just here's some kind of webcam do's and don'ts that may make your picture just a little bit better. And anyhow, they thought it was humorous and they wanted to bring me on, and well, here I am. So that's where, let me go ahead and turn it over to my presentation. And the article is very quick and really basic, and it's just some tips that you guys probably already know, but it's just a good good reminder to kind of go back over and as we evaluate what it is that we do, right? So let's see if I can present now. And I'm going to the window. And of course, it's the first time presenting on this computer, so it's going to deny me.
See if it helps a little bit.
Give me a second, guys.
Yeah?
Almost there.
They can't hear you.
Alright, guys. Can you guys all see this? No. No. How about now? Nope.
Yes.
Did you see the webcam on me? No? No. Okay, you did good. Alright, let me go back in there.
I was able to see it. Try it one more time, Jason.
Okay. What about now?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Yep. So this is the webcam zombie article that I forwarded. You know, it's kind of funny now. We're not going to look like that picture right there. That's obviously like an infrared picture. But as I kind of scroll down, you'll see some of the things that I'm talking about, and you may recognize yourself on here, like, oh my God, I've done this. Don't worry, we've all pretty much been there before. One of the things that you don't want to do is you don't want to be in a dark room and have your computer on, because what happens is the ambient light from the computer screen, it makes you look like that. You kind of look like a zombie. And you may not be eating any brains or anything, but again, that's a don't. Don't have a dark room with the computer open in front of you. The light from the computer screen will illuminate you just sort of like that, right? Dress for success, you know, kind of the rule of thumb is that you want to be dressed the way the other people in your meetings are dressed. And since right now we're probably meeting with a bunch of students, you know, you're probably okay. It's probably pretty casual. You know, we're all just trying to survive in this scenario. I know many of us are teaching kids at home or teaching students from afar, and you know, it is what it is, right? This scenario, this one's kind of interesting. So as you see this picture here, the lighting's great, background fine. I would say probably the only problem here is that she's wearing spaghetti straps, and the way that the camera is angled is, you know, it could be interpreted that, you know, she's got very little on. So you want to keep that kind of idea, that perception is sometimes reality. And let's scroll here. In this scenario here, lighting's good. Background, well, it needs a little bit of help. If you guys can see my cursor over here, you got a little bit of clutter out there. And, you know, that may not look as professional as you could possibly look, right? And as we kind of scroll down, this one is, you know, a pretty decent picture here. And I'm going to kind of, again, the lighting's good, background's good. And I'll just kind of throw this out there. Let me kind of go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And I just want to show you something. If you guys can all see me right now, because I'm talking, so I should probably be up. Now, I'm in my classroom, so the lighting's obviously very good. You know, it's kind of what we call a nice ambient light. It just kind of fills everywhere. There are some scenarios that we often run into at home because we're looking for the best background. So we say, hey, how about we have this nice window as a background? And I want to show you this. When you make the window as a background, and I'm going to use an open door that I have, and I just kind of turn kind of like this. And what you're seeing is it creates a silhouette figure where the light's way back there, and you can't really see me that well because what happens is the webcam on your computer, matter of fact, all cameras, this is kind of the way they operate, they meter the entire screen, and then they set the brightness for the brightest sort of part of the screen. And obviously in this case, you really can't see what's going on. If you just simply, you know, flip that light around, the picture's much better. So that's kind of some things that you want to be aware of. And that's my short and sweet presentation.
Jason, that was awesome. Thanks a lot. Do you mind if I shoot the screen on and trade screens with you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, everyone, you got to connect with Jason. If you come across some questions related to camera or film or anything like that, lighting, he's the man. He's been a huge resource for me. So there he is. Thanks a lot, Jason.
And also, I'll throw this out there real quick since I have everybody on here. If anybody wants, you know, we're trying to kind of put out Pyro News, and we're trying to kind of build morale and just make people seem like things are normal. if you guys have anything that you want to throw on Pirate News, like, hey guys, look what I'm doing at home, look what I'm doing with my kids, feel free to send it to me. I can take just about any format and convert it and put it on and just have a little fun. I think, during these times it's important to, just, have fun and seem normal and influence our kids, the way that we can influence them in a positive way. So again, if there's anything that you guys want to put on Pirate News, I'll throw it on there, send it to me, and we'll make things happen. Okay, guys?
If you haven't had a chance to watch the last episode or two, it's worth the time to share it. It's really it's a super community builder. As soon as you see it, it's what I'm talking about. Jason, thanks a lot. I'm going to switch gears here. We're going to move on to our next guest. Who is going to be? I'm going to change the screen and share with you a photo of my dear friend Genevieve Wilson. She's the champ's VIP, and I tell you, when I say that, it means a lot because she's been able to. She works at the district office right now. She's been influential with so many classrooms and towns and building strategies that help teachers move into more and more and greater influence and effectiveness in their classroom learning. I first came across Genevieve when she was a lead technology teacher at Collins, and I would walk into her classroom of kindergarten students, I don't know, really little, and they're all learning, they're all using technology. So she's definitely an amazing influence and can say a lot to us about Netiquette and as it relates to classroom, managing your classroom and your learning workflow in technology. So Genevieve, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to let you have the screen.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
I'm going to.
I can't see anything.
Maybe I need to. Let me see if I can. I'm gonna log off and log back on. So you're on as soon as I click.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Hold on. Of course, technology will have a glitch. Of course.
Genevieve, are you trying to share your screen?
No, I have a black screen. There's nothing there to share.
Do you want me to pull up your presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Or could I just? Like this. Oh, can you guys see that?
The present now button.
There's nothing there.
Okay. Click the bottom of the screen for the white bar to come up.
No, won't come up. No. Oh,
Yeah, so
sorry.
Genevieve. Yeah, so Genevieve, I think that you're coming across the same issue that I had too. So I had to actually close my browser and then reconnect. So.
Oh, okay.
Yes, just go ahead and you can beam back in just as soon as you.
Okay, be right back.
Yep. In the meantime, while she's beaming back into the presentation, just a quick reminder: if you have your microphone muted, it's helpful. That way, there's not interference when the presenter is presenting.
It's a public service announcement. I noticed that there are some glitches with Google Meet today. So if your screen happens to go all black and you have to leave and come back, it's happened to me 2 times now. So
yeah,
you're not alone.
Yeah, me too.
Earl, do you want me to discuss common sense media?
Oh, sure. That's a great idea, Nancy.
Okay. So, well, first of all, let me present my screen. Hopefully, I don't have the same issue. Okay, so if you haven't been to our website, so the PUSD distance learning website, we actually have a tab dedicated to Netiquette, which is what we're discussing today. Can you guys all see my screen, by the way? Okay.
You're good.
So we have a Netiquette resources area here, so everything that we're going to cover will also be hosted here. I do want to take some minutes to talk about common sense media resources that are very, very, very helpful. They're items that have been created by this organization that promotes digital citizenship, training, in relation to ed tech. So I have also linked it here on this website that we have, the PUSD e-learning website. And when you click on that item, you're actually taken to the Common Sense Education page. This page is completely free to sign up, and you can get a bunch of different resources. You can get resources for parents, you can get resources for students, for teachers, there's lesson plans, all having to do with educational technology. And you can even get items in Spanish as well. So there's actually a search feature right at the bar at the top here. And when you go there, you can look for reviews on items, videos and advice. But right now I'm actually going to focus on the lessons area. And you can refine your search by various grade levels, and you have different topics here, and you have different languages that you can choose here. I'm actually going to choose the relationships and communication area just because we're talking about Netiquette. And yesterday I was playing around with this, and I actually found a really cute video that can be used for the little ones. So this is designed for grade 1, but after looking at the item, you can probably use it for other grades as well, second, third. This says causing things online. It says from our head down to our toes and our feet up to our nose. Digital citizenship to teach students how to be safe and responsible on this platform online. And it has these characters that it uses to promote digital citizenship and acting responsibly online. I'm just going to play a little clip of it so you can see the type of materials that are on here. So it does a little song to kind of promote safe online learning. The kids can really get into it. It also has a lesson plan in relation to this video, so it has a lot of very good creative resources here. I really recommend that you take a minute after we're done with the webinar so you can explore it and see what you can use with your students, especially if some of the issues that we're talking about today are happening and have happened often. I recommend that you take a minute. It'll give you a lesson snapshot here. It'll even tell you the standards that you're covering by using the specific lessons. It'll have a full slideshow that you can use. You can download the song, sheet music even. It has coloring books. So a lot of fun materials that goes with the lesson. It's already done for you. It's here. You literally just have to search for the items, and then you get this full package of information. So definitely take a minute to visit this website as it has so many great items. The website is completely free, as I mentioned. There might be some pages that ask you to sign up with your Paramount Google account, and it's completely free. So it'll let you into more portals if you do sign up on it.
Thank you, Nancy.
All right, so I'm gonna hand it back to Genevieve.
Okay, let me try.
All right, Genevieve.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you. Can you see that? You see it. You can see it? Okay, thank you.
We
Give
can't
it one
hear
more
the
try.
presentation, but we do.
Go ahead.
Is it showing? No.
No.
Okay. Oh, wait. Let me try this.
All right.
Okay, we see it.
Oh,
So just a
fine.
reminder, if you're not speaking, make sure that you're muting your microphone. So if you're not speaking, make sure you
Okay. Are we ready to roll? All right. Thank you guys so much for your patience. I'm just going to talk briefly to you about structuring your virtual classroom, and there's so much information, but I'm going to try to condense it into small bites and fit into the small time frame that we have for today. So it's not different. This virtual classroom management plan is the same as your traditional classroom management plan that you already have in place. And it's really good because at this time of the year, you guys have already built solid relationships with your students, and now you just need to transfer your expectations to your virtual classroom. So right now, of course, we know it's an unexpected time in our lives. It's kind of affected our lives personally and also professionally. And I think it's been about, I'm not sure, 3 weeks or so, but I'm really proud about how our district and our teachers have just embraced and started the transition to virtual classrooms. And then I just wanted to give you a reminder that any and all of your efforts are valuable. Perfection is not required. So it's optional if you would like to go for that. Perfection not required, with all the work in progress, and think about progress over perfection and having things perfect. So today I'm going to talk about how we can be proactive and preventative with setting your classroom expectations and procedures using the STOIC framework, CHAMPS. And I'm sure that the transition to your virtual classroom was filled with all kinds of glitches. As you can see, I had one this morning. But all of our trials and obstacles that we have, we almost can't control them for our students. But I want to talk today about the things that we can control using the STOIC framework, which could be new or familiar for some, but we're going to use the STOIC framework to help us start with our expectations. So the things that we can control, S for the structure. We can structure our learning environment for success for our students. So on one side of the screen, that's the easy part because we are setting our expectations for what we want our students to do. The tricky part is on the other side of the screen, how we can guide our students to structure their learning environment for success. But we can try the best that we can. Looking at T, how can we teach students how to behave responsibly within our virtual classrooms that we've structured? And then O, how can we observe and monitor student behavior and student progress? I, how we interact positively with our students when they're meeting our expectations, and then if we need to correct them when they are not meeting our expectations. Take a look at this sign here, this picture. What's wrong with this picture? I included this because at the top it says no pets allowed. The sign at the bottom says all pets must be on a leash. We must make our expectations clear. That's confusing. So if we're not clear with our expectations, we're almost kind of setting our kids up for failure. So we need to be extremely, extremely clear when you're setting your expectations in your virtual classroom. So let's take a look at what is out there. I know right now we're on Google Meets. In the chat, maybe type in some platforms that you're using. I know Zoom is another popular one. What else is out there? Microsoft Teams, Google Classroom for some. I've seen some using Seesaw or maybe Nearpod. And of course, we have to have our Schoology platform. You want to look at this because once you begin to use or create your expectations, you have to think about the platforms that you're using. So that means that the activities will be different according to each platform that you're using. So the next thing we need to think about is your instruction delivery mode. So no matter what platform you're using, Google Classroom, Schoology, you need to think about your instructional delivery modes. So we have the benefit with our virtual classrooms, we can have our students work partners together. We can have them work independently by themselves, assigning assignments to them. We also can hopefully have a whole group presentation that's teacher directed. We also can do small groups as well as one-on-one teaching with our students. So after we've looked at our platform, your delivery mode, we have a Champs Virtual Classroom Activity Worksheet. This looks just like the other worksheet that is used in traditional classrooms, but probably 2.5 weeks ago, they changed the form so that it would include virtual classrooms. So in this form, at the top where it says online learning activity, let's choose perhaps whole group. We're going to do a whole group activity. The questions that are under each letter help you make decisions on your expectations. So for example, conversation, the students use the microphone. I would probably suggest muting all of your students. If leave it unmuted, that has distraction, you have background noise, and also if you would like for your students to use group chat, I probably would, but it would be teacher directed. The last one, can students chat privately with each other? I probably wouldn't. I would lean away from that. And I believe in Schoology, there's something that you can toggle to make so that the students can talk privately with each other. Under H, help. How do you want your students to get help? I think it could be just like in the traditional classroom. You could have the students raise their hands. You can have them use a signal, hand signals. And then the activity, you're choosing that. What type of learning structure you're going to use. Direct instruction. It could be direct instruction, and then your students can use a breakout room. The assessment part, I believe we're still working on, but even as a teacher, I would assess the activities that I'm presenting so that I can have formative assessments and know what to teach next. Movement, how do you feel about that? These questions will help you determine your expectations for that. Can students move away from the screen if needed? Technically, you would probably want to chunk your sessions so that they're not so long, 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes at the most, which would eliminate the need for your students to maybe go to the restroom. So I would want to make that an expectation that the students have to remain in front of the screen. Probably they can move around if it's needed, maybe stand up, as long as you can still see them on the screen. Participation. These are some more questions that will help you define your expectations. How will they show you? What will it look like? So for example, in the discussion or the breakout room, you'll know they're participating because you will see them typing in the chat room. If you unmute them and ask them a question, you'll know that they are participating because they're going to respond to you and answer. And then the last part of it is probably my favorite, which is always building the relationships. We cannot forget that. In our traditional classrooms, what did we do? We greeted our students at the door by name, talking to them. It can be the same in your virtual classroom. Greeting your students by name as they come into your session. And I think, I'm kind of old, but the romper room, I don't know if you guys remember that, Miss Marianne, she would say, I see Bobby and I see Billy. So calling your students by their names and letting them know that you are aware that they're there provides good connections with them. End of your sessions, it's important to remember your 3-to-1 ratio. You're interacting with your students, so set a goal for yourself. So it could be, let's say, 5 students you want to connect with privately to give them feedback. And it could be positive, the things that they met your expectations, or maybe I would do just one corrective, something that they could work on. Whole group, I would give the students feedback publicly. That would be okay. You have to let them know that they're meeting your expectations so that they can continue to do it. Now, the worksheet that we just looked at is to help the teacher. That is not to instruct your students on your expectations. So you have your instructional curriculum. The worksheet would be your behavior curriculum because you have to teach your kids your expectations. So here's a sample. If you would use this, you do not have to go in the order. It should just come naturally as you're talking. So good morning, room 17. I'm going to keep you muted unless you're called on, or once we go into our breakout rooms. If you need help, make sure you raise your hand. We're going to be working on writing today. You are able to move around, but stay in front of the screen. Please answer if I call on you, and then speak up in the breakout room. So this is just the teaching part of it. It should look like a sample visual of how you're going to teach the student. Some teachers prefer to use slides. You can put the expectations at the bottom so that they can remain there and you can refer to them. Here is champs for online meetings. Champs is almost like a verb, so you can champ things out. This teacher chose to champ out their online meeting, but this would be for our Schoology conferences or our Zoom lessons. Another example, teacher created online learning time, so that would be read alouds, direct instruction, where the lesson is going on live. She's using icons as well as words. Under help, I like the way she put the type the question mark symbol in the chat area to receive help. This one is also expectations for independent work at home, workbook time, and assign computer tasks when you are not there. This one, I kind of was hesitant with the help question, with the help expectation, where it says, ask mom and dad. And realizing how diverse our families are these days, it's kind of tricky. We're not sure you know your kids and you know what you could use, but I probably would go with something more general, maybe ask a family member or ask a caregiver. And then a little funny, because I thought about it, if you have to ask me, and let's say, for instance, my son needs help with calculus, I can't help him. So maybe we better not put the ask mom and dad on there. That was the last sample, just a reminder before we move on to keep it simple. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Keep your expectations and your lessons simple. Be very flexible. As you can see, you never know what will happen, especially with technology. So be ready. Go ahead and teach your expectations and then go. But that go means that if it's not working, remember you need to go back and adjust your expectations if necessary.
Well, thanks a lot, Genevieve. That was fantastic. Mm-hmm. And so I just wanted to just make sure everyone knows that the resources that are being presented here will be available on the links on the website. And so just go ahead, you can see that. We'll just add this presentation that Genevieve just finished to the website, and you can all have access to all the material and all those places. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen. I'm introducing our next guest. And thanks, Genevieve. That was great. And so our next guest comes from Jefferson Elementary School. And I just wanted to introduce Elba. She's kind of an amazing advocate for instructional technology, not just at Jefferson, but also across the district. She's a good friend of ours, and she's been such a support. She's a STEPS speaker, a breakout speaker from 2019, and she's an instructional tech innovator, and she's got some important things that she's going to share with us that embed writing into her lesson. So I'm going to disconnect and let you take it away.
Okay, thank you.
I think I just lost my screen, so I'm gonna probably have to check out.
Hope you guys can see my screen. Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Okay, so I do have a PowerPoint. Good morning. Hopefully, my presentation, you guys will be able to see the correlation between Ms. Wilson and mine. We kind of collaborated last night to see how we can put the two presentations together. So I wanted to present to you guys what we should do as teachers. What it might look like Netiquette as a teacher. I think it's important for us to be the example for our students. So I did a little quick presentation. I'll try to stay within my 10 minutes. So the Netiquette, I know that I'm a fourth grade teacher at Jefferson, but I think this information is helpful for anyone, K-12, especially because we're all new to this virtual learning, distance learning with our students. So the first thing that I think is important for us to know is that we teachers, we are the example for our students. We have to make sure that we ourselves, we have the Netiquette when we are presenting and when we are ready to show our students a new lesson. So the first thing that I think we need to discuss is the guidelines and expectations for ourselves. And then I will let you know the expectations that I have for my own students. So as teachers, we need to plan, we need to be organized, and we need to make sure that we manage the workflow. Like I said, this is a new thing for all of us, and we're still learning. So when we are planning our lesson, I think that we need to take into consideration how this new distance learning is. It's something that we have never done before. I know a lot of us have used Schoology since August, or we use Google Classrooms or some type of virtual technology to teach our lessons, but this distance learning is something new for all of us. So it's important for us to know that it's okay for us to make mistakes. It's okay for us to not be perfect, like Ms. Wilson said. It's okay for us to make mistakes, stop, and revisit our lessons. So what I've learned so far in these 3 weeks is that we have to be slow and steady. We can't just go rush in there and do a whole 3-hour lesson for our students. They're not ready for that, and we're not ready for that because it's something new. We have to review, either think about we're going to review something, a new concept, or learn, or we're teaching a new concept that's close to our students. We have to be very thoughtful about our lessons, what we want to present to them. I personally don't think it has to be a full lesson at first. I think we have to make it into like 30 minutes or less. Just like in the classrooms, the students are very, they lose their focus very easily. So I think even technology, we're not there in front of them. So we have to kind of train them and teach them how to behave. So we can't do a lesson longer than 30 minutes, just so we can keep the routine and make sure they're on task. And then also the classroom management. I think staying within the 30-minute lesson, we are able to focus on classroom management in a different way. The next thing as we're planning our lesson is to choose your platform. So I've used all three. I've used Google Meet, Zoom.com, and then Schoology conferences. Personally, I like the Schoology conferences. I haven't had any technology issues with them. I tried Google Meet, and like you said this morning with all of us, we had the screen go black. So we do need to try something, a platform that we really like. Personally, I like Schoology. It records it. I'm able to, have my own settings. It is recorded for 7 days, so teachers can go back and view it just like the other platforms. But personally, you have to choose what you like and what works for you. Just because everyone's using Zoom.com doesn't mean you have to use it. It's something that you have to feel comfortable because this is your classroom for the next month now. So you have to make sure you're choosing something that you feel comfortable. So I highly promote Schoology. That's just my preference. Okay, so the second and third part of a teacher, you have to be organized and manage your work. So when I'm planning my lesson, I think as teachers, when we plan our lessons in the classroom, we know what we want to get done, standards, what we're trying to hit, but we have whole 6 hours with them. And during this time, we just have to make sure the lessons are short, but they're meaningful and powerful. That's the best way I can describe it. It has to be something that the kids are able to understand, learn, practice, and they're able to use at home when they're by themselves. So I always ask myself, how will I teach my lessons? So I love PowerPoint, as you can see in the presentation. I love PowerPoint. So the last few classes I've given my students, I do a PowerPoint presentation. So I'm in fourth grade, so we're teaching fractions. So my 2 lessons that I've done, well, my 3 lessons, there has been a PowerPoint presentation with most of it. So they can always go back and reuse that information as I teach anything. So they have access to that information. And then for ELA, we started with possessive nouns. So I have a PowerPoint on possessive nouns so they can go back and just keep practicing and keep assessing, assessing that document on screen. And then another thing, when you're managing and organizing your lesson, you have to be, how are students going to be engaged during the lesson? So it's something that you have to decide how I'm going to keep the students, not just me giving the lesson, but how are they going to respond back to me? So it's all chance, as Wilson said. And in a few minutes, I'll show you what that looks like in my classroom. But you need to take into consideration the students need to be participating and they need to be engaged in the lesson. And then the last one is deciding the roles of the students. In my classroom, I think they need to be active participants. And it doesn't matter if they know the answer or not, but they need to participate in the lessons. So here's what a lesson will look like in my classroom. The first thing I do, make sure, yeah, you can still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, it sounded like it was off. Okay, so for my lessons, the first thing I do in every single lesson, I do 2 30-minute lessons. So once CLA, once math. So for every single lesson, it doesn't matter if I've done it up for 3 weeks, I always communicate with my students the expectations. Just like in school, we have champs and we tell them, okay, level 0, figure speed, raise your hand for, to ask questions, participate, all those. I do the same thing in my lessons. I type in the chat room, I said, okay, remember the expectations. First one, I always tell them, mute your microphones during the lesson or during presentation. So I do give them some homework and I have a kid present their work. And when someone's presenting, they have to mute themselves. And I tell them it's just because it's with my second goal. You have to be respectful and consider the speaker. So in the classrooms, we are an avid school. So it's all about SMAC. You look at the speaker, you follow the speaker, you sit up straight. So the same thing in the virtual world. They have to be respectful. So muting, it helps them be respectful towards somebody else who's speaking, and it could be the teacher or the classmate. And I tell them, think about how you want, to be treated. So if you want someone respecting you when you're speaking, you have to respect them as well. I do tell them in order for them to ask questions, they have to use the chat room feature, so they can just type in there. And because I have access to it, and you can see the chat just like if Google Meet, you can see when someone's typing. I'm able to answer questions or come back to those questions later in the lesson. I also, like I said, at Jefferson, we are an avid school, so we do take 2-column notes. So my students would actually have the math notebook, which is but we all have the math notebook, and they know to take notes for ELA or math, and that is participating. That's showing me that they're taking notes, they're taking the initiative, they're learning what I taught them since August. And then I kind of went through over that one. So participating during classes during the chat, and then no shouting out. So the purpose of muting is so they're not shouting out. It is harder for us to manage the classroom when they're all at the house. There's different noises coming in. So I mute it in order to prevent any kind of shouting out during the lesson.
Alba, there was a question. You said of your classes, how many of your students are joining you for your online meeting?
Good question. So at the beginning, it was only, I'm sorry to say, it was only 5 or 6. But last night, I did a lesson last night, and it was, I think, 12 or 13, something like that. I think it was 12 for the math, and then at the end, when I was doing my ELA lesson, I think like 13, 14 showed up. So, yeah, so just the more you communicate with them and they see it, and my students are used to it. That was their platform to learn in my classroom as well, so they're used to it. So it's getting more and more participating as we go along. And I think they know each other, they're in the neighborhood, so they're kind of telling each other, hey, we're meeting. And I can see more students going in Okay, and the last thing for the is expectations. So in my classroom, in my virtual classroom, I tell them they have to participate. If I ask a question, even if they're not sure of the answer, I tell them type whatever you think the answer is, because that's showing me you're participating. There's no I don't know. Yeah, I'd rather you have the wrong answer than not have an answer at all. So in my classroom, I expect them, and I think you have to do that in the virtual. They have to give you something for them to communicate with you that they're actually on task. And then after my lesson, I think this is a great tool that we could all use, even if you learn Schoology. The easiest thing we can do, personally, is Schoology discussion posts. So after every lesson, they have expectations as well, because we have to keep them accountable of what they learn. So after every class, I have a class post discussion on Schoology, and they are required to post. And within that post, they learn a long time ago, and even I tell them at this point what the expectations. They have to respond. They have to respond to the question. It could be a picture, it could be a sentence, but you have to teach them how to do it. So I do always post my answer, but they can't see my answer until they respond. So you have to kind of, in order to prevent plagiarism, which is something I taught them earlier on in the year, there's a setting on the school discussions that they can't see someone else's response until they respond themselves. So it's good for them to just give me their answers, and it's okay if they're wrong. They'll learn from their classmates, because they have to go back and then they have to read other posts and then give them a compliment, a comment, or give them some type of positive suggestion. So I think that keeps them with the whole netiquette and being respectful of others on the internet. And with that said, I also teach them that everything they post, no matter where it stays on the internet forever. So they have to be respectful, it has to be positive, and it has to be something that it can help others. And it's funny, because at the beginning of the year, I would tell them, make sure you capitalize your sentences, or make sure that your eyes capitalize. And now you see it as they see your responses to them. You see kids responding the same way you respond. So, like I said, we are the example when it comes to netiquette, and the kids will mimic and will do exactly what we do. So, I think that's it. And so that hopefully that was helpful. I don't know if you have any questions, but I think that was my end of the presentation.
Thanks, Elba. It was great. If you guys have any questions, feel free to put them on the chat.
Great job, Elba. Go ahead and pull out the presentation that you've got, and then we're going to swap over. Our last guest, and is just she's been a remarkable leader in Buena Vista, and it's been a great, not only a leader on our campus, but across the district, a good friend, and a great resource for our team as well. She's organized and facilitated lots of training opportunities for our team to go on campus at Buena Vista. And so I want to introduce to everyone Emily Martin. Emily, I'm going to go ahead and let you jump right in. It looks like we're a little bit behind everyone, so if you can hang in there, stick around. We want to make sure we give time for everyone to be able to share with us their insights around the topic of netiquette. So stick around if you can. And Emily, you're on.
Oh, what a lovely introduction. Thank you. Let me see here. Okay. Can you see my screen? Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So I teach 11th grade English. I apologize if my cat jumps on the screen. She's very professional, right? She gets excited when I start talking. So I teach 11th grade English primarily. I also teach yearbook and advisory class. And I just want to talk about my experience with online team building, circles, norms, because at Buena Vista, we really embrace the idea of community circles and restorative circles. So I wanted to show you some real life documents that I've done with students and people on our campus have done with students to help maintain that connection. Because as we know, that connection with students is why they show up to school a lot of times. It's not because they're super excited about math or they're super excited about this writing strategy. A lot of the time, it's the human to human contact. So at the high school level, they already know the expectations. They've heard it their whole life. Don't do this, don't do that. This is how you act in community. So I like to bring them into the conversation and really let them lead the conversation about what are our expectations as a class. They will probably say a lot of the things that you will already have set up. So this is the first document that I have about building norms. I usually start with a discussion about, in the previous semesters, what has interfered with your learning? So I've shared this document with students and I've given them editing access. I just posted the link on Schoology, and they hopped in and they put in their ideas. They brainstormed together, and this was a class of like 15 kids. So right away, I always talk about anything you post is permanent on the internet, and I talk about the editing history. I always have access to the editing history, so make sure you represent yourself in a respectable manner. Don't say anything that you wouldn't say in person. And we talk about don't spam the chat and just those basic expectations about how to act online. Those are very helpful. And the previous presenters, they also talked about that. That's a good place to start, is just online etiquette. So in previous semesters, what has interfered with your learning? Some of the students said like horse playing, yelling in class. These were real student answers. Watching movies in class, going to sleep, eating in class, like people running around. There are some silly answers there too, like you gotta smack it so you won't lack it. So we talked about that too, and most of the students, they'll be on your side. They'll see that one person who's being a clown and they'll say like, hey, can we not? And it just takes a moment to address it, and they usually get on board. So we took those brainstorms from the left column, and then we talked about what would be some reasonable norms or some expectations that we can set of each other to prevent that from happening in class. So they talked about some people would prefer to work with headphones, and at the time we were in the class, so that was a reasonable expectation. Knowing when to be funny and when to pay attention, raising our hands, making sure that our phones are put away, lowering your voice, think before you post. So there were some very smart and I think thoughtful discussion with that. Next, we talked about the consequences of our choices. We talked about positive consequences and negative consequences. So they brainstormed that list, and I acted as like a reporter. They just verbalized their answers, and then I just took notes for them. Another way you can start the discussion is to talk about what is a productive classroom. So I have a link here. And this is a document that I just pushed out to everybody, and they shared it with a group of 4. So in that group of 4, everybody took a box, and the question is, what is a productive classroom, or what does a productive classroom do? What does it look like, feel like, sound like, and is not? So I've also changed the productive word to other words like ideal. What is a respectful classroom? What is a friendly classroom? So you can change up the wording based on what the needs of your classroom, your particular classroom are. But I like to start with productive because that's why we're all here. We're all here to learn and get a product from it. So we use that. What does it look like, feel like, sound like, is not? It's a Google drawing, so their team, they can all edit it. They can add text. They added images, relevant images. So they're very skilled with drawing on the computer, so they added drawings. It's a very cool little introduction piece. Some other team building or community activities that I have are acrostic poems. So you can think of a word. They brainstormed a word either with a partner or individually that would describe an ideal learning environment. Another option is they picked a word that will help give them and their peers encouragement throughout the year. So some of the student examples that I had here were one group picked respect. and then they built on those letters. And then another group, they picked diligence, and then they built on those letters. So a little quick poem as a little creative piece to think about how we can support each other and encourage each other. Other activities, I've done weekly shout-outs using Google Forms. So students will, usually on Fridays, or you can start with Monday, maybe reflecting on the previous week, a shout out to a student. And we recognize students for maybe their kindness, maybe they helped you out with an assignment, maybe they're just a really good listener and you always feel like they're just a good person to go to if you have a question. And then if I see like multiple students recognizing a student for something, like everybody says that Jose is a good listener, then I will usually make a custom Schoology badge and I'll award that badge to them. And it kind of gives them that sense of pride, like, wow, people really notice that I pick things up in the classroom, or that I always turn things on time, in on time, or that I'm respectful, or that I'm friendly, or just, it's kind of cool that they give those accolades to each other and not just me telling them, this is what I think of you, but this is what the community thinks of you. Another little play on that is Friendly Fridays. I have all the students create a Padlet. It's a blank Padlet at first. I have them make their first post a little bit about them. So I like to think of Padlet as like an interactive board with sticky notes. And I've done the same thing in class where students will wear a blank page taped to their back, and then they walk around the classroom and give compliments or friendly notes to each other. So they'll write a little friendly note and then they'll post it on someone's back, and then at the end everybody gets to read what all their friendly notes or compliments were. So I do the same thing with Padlet. They make a Padlet, I have them post the share link in a Google form, so I have a spreadsheet of all the links, and then I can just click through all of them really quick. I share that spreadsheet with the students so that they can click on the links and they can give people in their class a friendly note or a little pep talk, or just post something positive on their Padlet. And I use that same Padlet throughout the quarter. Okay. Another like group or team activity I have is called Build a Meal, and I've done this while in the classroom. So I imagine that it will work the same like outside of the classroom. Basically, students are rated 4, and their instructions are to build a perfect meal. And have the instructions there on the side too. Using Google Drawings again, they use the shapes, colors, lines, images, and they build the ingredients to their favorite meal. So this was a real student example. They had a strawberry shake and a chili cheeseburger. Not my favorite, but they were a group of boys and they really enjoyed chili cheeseburgers from Tommy's, I think it was. And so they talked about, who's going to do which section, who's going to do which part. So a kid who didn't really know how to use the tools, they started showing him how to use the shape tool, how to insert the lines and the right shapes. They discussed and deliberated amongst themselves, like what shape should the bun be, because someone said like it should be more curved, and then someone started with a square, and then they said like, no, it's too square, that's like a patty. And so just that innate deliberation piece allowed them to build some team activity between them and some personal connection. Next, they had to present their recipe to the class. We talked about how do the ingredients work together to create a delicious meal. And then as a brilliant, wonderful teacher, we made the comparison to that metaphor could be a class discussion about how does your participation in a group or in the class contribute to the quote meal or the learning. So that was really fun and a great way to have them work as a team and really teach each other. The next way I help build community, like I said, Buena Vista, we are really focused on community circles. We're a small school, so we check in with our students a lot, and we're really missing that personal connection. So I thought, how can we build that in the digital world? So in a video conference, it doesn't really matter if you're using Google Meet or Schoology. What I like about Google Meet is that students can see each other if that's your purpose. But in Schoology, you do have more settings and teacher controls if you need a little bit more controlled environment. So community circle, sometimes it's hard to tell who's talking and whose turn it is. So I use a circle seating chart like the one here. And you can, sometimes it's fun to have the students participate in making the seating chart. Well, they'll make their own little icon for themselves and label themselves where they want to sit in the circle. And I start with me, I'm like at the bottom here. And then I have some kind of directional arrow. If you want to do extra credit, you can put in a little symbol for the talking piece. And you can actually move the talking piece around as students are talking. So that's something I have displayed while I'm having the discussion. So after we've established norms, after we are, maybe we're checking into a classroom or checking out of the classroom, just a quick, like, how I would do in the classroom, like, how are you guys doing? You know, what's going on? One cool share is the appreciation apology aha. So that's just a quick exit ticket type thing. Like you just in the circle would share, maybe you hurt somebody and you need to apologize for something. Maybe you appreciated something in the day, or that aha moment, that light bulb moment that you learned something that you wanted to share. There's also the other version for high school called Happy Crappy. I stole that from someone on our campus. It's also called Rose and Thorn if you want to censor it a little bit. But basically, students share one positive or one negative from the week. Okay, so those are the community circles. Next, I use Schoology discussion prompts because students are very familiar with forums and chat rooms like that. So I find that's very easy to translate this idea of community. You can do quick writes. I have some prompts there, some quick writes. I have some respect discussion prompts, character building prompts. Sometimes I'll do a poll about would you rather, so using that Schoology discussion or the polls feature in the updates. And some other activities there I have, one-pagers, self-reflections, and a cool little TED Talk about self-esteem that led to some really good discussion. And I think that's everything. Woo.
Kelly, that was fantastic. I really, really loved the seating chart diagram that you had. That was amazing. So the question is, will students write in and fill in their own names and develop that together with you?
They can, yeah. And sometimes I'll start with their names already in place. So I'll say, find yourself in the circle. That's where you're sitting. And then once they've been introduced to it, I have them add themselves. Also, some ways to just indicate that they need help or they need something from you. I love in Schoology the little emojis or set a status. Like there's a thumbs up, there's a raise hand one, there's a smiley face, a sad face, or even just using the webcam. I'll tell them, like, if you have a question, hold up a 1. If you have something to add on, give me a 2. If you need to use the restroom, I use the sign language R for restroom. So just teaching them some basic hand motions too, like deaf applause, because if we're all talking at the same time, that can be very distracting. Everybody already said a really great expectation is muting the mic, and some kids just really want to show that they agree, and that just gives them a little bit of jazz hands.
Hey, that was fantastic. All right, we're going to wrap up here, even though I think there's so much stuff that we can add to this. But I totally appreciate everyone hanging in there, and I know that it was definitely well worth the while. So thanks everyone for joining us. For resources to follow up, click on the Learning from a Distance website, Nancy and Joyce Constructed. It's full of amazing resources, and so take a second to check that out. Again, thanks for hanging in there. Before I leave, does anyone else, Ryan or Joy or Nancy, want to say anything in closing? I think if not, then I think we're just going to wrap up there, and we look forward to seeing everybody again as we schedule these out. We're going to do this on a consistent basis on Tuesday morning. So see everyone next Tuesday. Thanks, everyone. Great job, Emily. Great job, Alba. Great job, Jason. Awesome job, Genevieve. Thanks, Nancy and Joy.